episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. This is continuing coverage of Hana Kobayashi, the 30-year-old woman from Maui who landed at LAX from Maui back on November 8th and then promptly went missing a couple of days later. There's been a tremendous amount of resources going into this, and now we're getting new information. If you saw the last show, which just ended, we had Detective Moses Castillo retired from the LAPD, and he says that the LAPD is about to announce that Hana Kobayashi left on her own, of her own volition, and the chief is supposed to be speaking to KABC News out in Los Angeles, which we are monitoring. But there is some breaking news. Of course, we are joined by Rob D'Amico, who served 39 years both in the military and as an FBI special agent. Law enforcement officials, Rob, and this is now according to KNBC in Los Angeles. I don't know why I'm going out of focus here, but according to KNBC, my apologies, KNBC in Los Angeles, they are saying what the chief is supposed to be saying shortly, that there is no evidence of foul play in her disappearance, that she left of her own free will, and that she has crossed the border, that they say they have sightings of her crossing the border into Mexico. What do you make of this, Rob D'Amico?
Well, obviously something happened with LAPD that they've confirmed that, she was voluntarily missing. Definitely, like, law enforcement has the ability to comb the border and see if she crosses. She's going to have a passport. It's all videotaped. So where the news is getting that, I don't know if they have someone down there or if they're getting it from law enforcement sources or something. But obviously she probably sounds like she doesn't want to be found, and, she's going about whatever she's planning. But law enforcement confirmed that she wasn't taken. She wasn't a harm to herself. And that, that's where it's at. They're not going to, keep pursuing it anymore.
Yeah. So there's interesting news. Now, this is KNBC out of Los Angeles. This is a direct quote from them. She's an adult and she can choose to be missing. This is a senior law enforcement official telling NBC LA that she's safe and that she's traveling of her own free will. And we are monitoring. I'm going to bring this up real quick.
Scan this QR code now.
That was Hana Kobayashi on local KBC. We're hearing that the police chief is going to be speaking directly to KABC, but this is KNBC. And Rob, what's interesting about this, reading further down in this article, investigators who are speaking anonymously, COE, I know I'm out of focus and you need to get in here tomorrow to figure out why. I have no idea. And I'm not figuring that one out on my own. But Rob D'Amico, this is the interesting part. Today is December 2nd. According to this law enforcement official who spoke to NBC LA, Hana Kobayashi left the United States near the Tijuana border sometime between November 12th and November 13th. That's a long time ago. Why are we just hearing that now? What's going on here? And I think this was, I'm not sure which day her dad unalived himself, but it may have even been after this. So, I figured they were going to say, oh, she just crossed the border a half hour ago.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were getting in, that like she was seen on a bus or whatever going down to the border. I didn't first I heard of the 12th or 13th, but then again, LAPD has got a couple dates wrong before, like her birthday, or her age, and when she disappeared. So who knows? Because that does sound like a long time. And I thought there was a spotting on the 14th of her by Staples Metro. So
Yeah. By the way, it was 2 weeks later almost. So they're saying that she crossed into COE. You keeping an eye on this because I see breaking news here. And it's not related to our story.
it may have been she like crossed and came back like at a different time, and now she's going back down there or something. There's no context to that comment, unfortunately. But it doesn't line up with what we were hearing before on some of the video surveillance where she was seen with that guy by the Staples Center. I think the 13th they had her at the mall at that bookstore and the Nike store or something. So
Yeah.
it's not sounding like those are lining up.
Yeah. By the way, the reason we're back on air here is in the last show, one of our best guests is a retired LAPD detective who's actually been working with Hannah's family, not in an investigative role, but just to help them navigate what's been going on. And he told us that LAPD's police chief, a guy named Jim McDonnell, was supposed to speak to KABC at the top of this hour to basically say, look, Hannah Kobayashi went missing of her own free will. But what I'm talking to Rob about now is coming from KNBC Los Angeles, and they're saying that she crossed the border into Mexico back on November 12th into the 13th. And what's crazy about that is her dad unalived himself on November 24th. So, Rob, that's literally like almost 2 weeks after she would have gone into Mexico. I just can't wrap my head around the father part of this, the father unaliving himself. I mean, I know like you were just saying in the last show, the last hour, that it is, I'm just reading a comment here. This is the COE. No one has ever checked my ID leaving Cali and going to Mexico. COE, you usually fly without ID somehow. You're a master of that. She plays a damsel in distress. She gets on airplanes without a license half the time. But Rob, according to this, she left for Mexico November 12th into the 13th. The dad takes his life on November 24th. I don't know. None of this is adding up to me. It's just such a bizarre case.
No,
I know I'm beating a dead horse right now, but
it's getting more confusing because again, I thought there was some video evidence after those dates of her being in California. From what we heard before, the bookstore, the mall, and then I thought it was the 14th where she was seen at the Staples Center metro area with a guy that was unfamiliar, and someone said she looked in distress. So those aren't adding up with the dates that they're saying she went down to Mexico. So I don't know if it went down and came back, or if dates are being confused. And again, her father 10 days later unalived himself. But there I don't think they had that information. So who knows? Again, we talked about this last time that they were estranged. They didn't talk. So we have no idea what was going through his mind for him to do that, if he felt somehow it was his fault that this was going on, or there was some trauma that this is a result of that maybe he was involved in. Not to hyper speculate too much, but I think there has to be something further that we may never know that had those sequence of events happen.
yeah, I mean, it sort of goes, I mean, in a way, although not really. She apparently has had her phone off since November 11th. So, and then it would have been the following day that she's, according to police who spoke to KNBC in LA, that she went into Mexico on the 12th, going into the 13th. I'm just trying to, I have some older notes here with the timeline. So November 8th, Rob, obviously is the day that she lands, right? Now, the headline today was that she intentionally misses her flight to New York. That was the headline, that she intentionally did that. Then we're getting word from a detective, formerly of the LAPD, who's actually working with the family to say that she, according to the detective, that she did this intentionally, that she intentionally made herself disappear. But I'm looking at the timeline. So November 9th is the day that she's spotted at that bookstore, Tashkin, which is like the big coffee book, photography book. So she's there on the 9th, and then the 10th, and then the 11th, she's seen. This is the day, Rob, on the 11th, where she's spotted at the Pico metro station. And that's the video that that has never been publicly released, of her with some foreign guy. So, and that is the last day that anyone hears from her. Now, on that day, you're getting text messages. The family's getting text messages saying, "I don't feel safe." And here's a direct text: "Deep hackers wiped my identity, stole all of my funds, and have had me on a mind F since Friday." She goes on to say,
from Hawaii, Eyewitness News has learned there's video showing Hana Kobayashi crossing the border into Mexico. The announcement comes after the LAPD said that Kobayashi missed her connecting flight at LAX on purpose. Kobayashi's sister and mother issued a statement saying they were unaware of the findings presented to police. Kobayashi had a flight to New York last month, but stopped in LA and never continued on. We will, of course, continue to follow this story throughout the day.
The driver accused of killing two young sisters.
yeah, so the chief obviously did not speak to them. But this is, Rob, this is getting so weird to me all over again. So, because I'm just looking at the timeline. So on November 11th, she texts saying, "Deep hackers wiped my identity, stole all of my funds, and have had me on a mind F since Friday." Another message reads, "I got tricked pretty much into giving away all my funds for someone I thought I loved." That same day, she returns, police say, to LAX. But now they're saying the following day, she goes into Mexico, something we haven't heard about until just now. Why wouldn't, I mean, police have had to have known this for days, if not weeks. Why would they only announce that now? Or why would we only be finding out about that now?
Well, some of the things that got me confused on the dates was because they released statements like on the 17th about the one video and stuff. So it's kind of all over the place. But it sounds like her texts maybe on the 11th were meant to throw them off if she had this plan to go down to Mexico. I would have to look into like if ICE gets involved, if the feds, depends when the feds get involved to be able to take that video and now start saying, okay, who crossed the border? Because a lot of people cross that border. So how are they, feeding that into the computer? Are they getting it back and then looking at it and confirming it's her based on all the things? So they may have had this for a while and we're trying to then get a hold of her to, see if she went down on her own. So I think it's just, there's a lot of information going back and forth, depending when the feds got involved to be able to then run that at a border crossing, or they may not have known to look down there for a little bit, a little while. And then, did some searches and said, oh, wait a second, we have a hit on that. So it's all a matter of when resources were starting to be used in looking for, because if there's no indication going down to Mexico, they might not even, thought to do something along those lines.
Yeah. For those joining, by the way, the LA Times is now reporting as of 3 minutes ago that Hana Kobayashi is in Mexico. And for those who are just joining, the reason we're back on the air a few minutes after doing a Hana Kobayashi story is we had an LAPD detective, Moses Castillo, retired. He was with us in the last hour. He's been working with Hannah's family to just, not in an investigative role, but in an effort to just help them deal with this fiasco, for lack of a better word. And um, he told us that the LA police chief was about to announce that she left voluntarily. In the meantime, since that, we have found out that Hana Kobayashi is in Mexico. And not only is she in Mexico, according to NBC LA, she went to Mexico between November 12th and November 13th. That's two plus weeks ago. Now, NBC LA is also reporting that no foul play is believed to have taken place, or there's no evidence of foul play. Rob, all this again is just so odd. I think this is going to come back to bite the LAPD in the behind, probably just because they weren't more transparent here. And I know you've got investigations, but this is a new police chief, and this seems to be a little mini disaster creeping up on him, at least from a PR perspective. But today's headline, before all this other news I just talked about, the LAPD came out and said that Hana missed her connecting flight on purpose. So Rob, what's the deal here? Because first we heard she had this photography gig, this once in a lifetime gig. She spent $2,000 on hotel tickets. She couldn't wait to get out there. She was supposed to go with her boyfriend. She doesn't go with her boyfriend. A lot of this stuff just isn't adding up. And I'm not blaming Hana here, and I'm not blaming her family. I'm just saying from, and I maybe I am blaming the LAPD here, because it seems like everyone's incredibly confused. And if she in fact went to Mexico November 12th, why would we just learn about that now? That you have to think a lot of people, forget police, just citizens were looking for her in the LA area. So Rob, what the hell's going on?
So welcome to the world of police, where you get brought into something after a bunch of things happen, and then you have to start putting this puzzle together. And that's literally what you go through most of the time. So I'm not blaming LAPD, because I don't know exactly when all this stuff started coming in. As far as, like, again, LAPD doesn't have sources to the footage and the lists of people that were going across the border. So at that point, did the FBI get involved, and then did ICE get involved because of that? And then they started looking at the border searches. I guarantee the chief right now has a bunch of people getting him an accurate timeline of when they got all this information and what they've done for those PR reasons, so that they can be transparent and say, look, we get it, but these are the series of events that happen. This is when we were informed this. This is when the feds got involved. This is when we got this information that she crossed the border. This is how we had to confirm it. We just couldn't come out and say it without it, being 100% sure. So all those things are probably going on in the background to again, we call it CYA, cover your, backside, so to speak. But like all the pieces, now that you have information, it's a lot easier to put together, so to speak. But when you're actively doing it and you only have a bit of information here, she may have been feeding the family disinformation to get them off the case. And then that, the police are spending resources going down what they think are these texts and looking, trying to find information electronically on the phone of her, Venmo that she sent and stuff like that. The whole plans of her going to New York for this job. Again, we talked about last time, there had to be some triggering event or something that's happened that caused her to do this. Don't know if it happened before she left and she'd planned to do this, or during that flight, something happened and she just had to do something. And we talked about last time, at least the police came out and said, she purposely did not make the connecting flight where her ex-boyfriend had. So they definitely looked at the video at the airport and determined she had no intent on getting that next flight. Because he made it, it's easy to know someone from that flight made it to the next one. So it wasn't impossible, but I'm sure they had video of her maybe not even going towards that gate, just going for the exit. And then we talked about her going back to the airport on that day. I think there's something about her luggage maybe coming back from the first flight where they sent it back to LAX. So maybe in fact she needed that luggage to go down to Mexico. Maybe that's what she was waiting for. Got the luggage back from the airline, and then decided to carry out her plan to go down to Mexico.
So, I mean, is your gut telling you, and I know this is, I'm literally asking about your gut feeling here, but that she was kind of playing her family? Because her family genuinely seemed concerned, and maybe it's now coming together that she was intentionally misleading them.
There had to be something for her not to say, look, I need time. I need to take a break. I need whatever. There was a reason she didn't tell him. So there's something there. So was she giving disinformation, or was something that she was talking about caused her to do this and she didn't want to tell him? But there's definitely something we're all not seeing between her and the family that made her not want to tell them the truth. So was she planning disinformation? It sounds like it. Or now the LAPD said that, this is a voluntary thing. So they don't know, if they haven't spoken to her, they don't know if this is a mental crisis where all they're saying is because she did all these things with, if they saw the video of her crossing the border, say alone, and she's not being forced to, that she's okay in doing it on her own. But you don't know, if you don't talk to them, that they're not going through a mental crisis. So that, I think, is still out there. If they talked to her and found out that she did this on her own, I think they could evaluate that a little bit better. But if you're just doing it on video of her taking actions without looking like she's being forced to, they don't know about the mental crisis. So I think that's still in play now, that she could have had this some episode and now she's doing things that really don't make sense and they don't know her clarity of mental status.
This is fascinating me now, because now so many conflicting headlines are coming out. If you're just joining us, today the LAPD said that she intentionally missed her flight from LAX to New York. But now NBC LA is reporting that she crossed over to Mexico on November 12th. That's like 2 weeks ago, if not more. People are asking, her father unalived himself on November 24th. So that'd be literally 12 days after she was going into Mexico. From Genevieve, Rob, I know we don't know the actual answers, but it's interesting to kind of speculate on this for sure. What was drawing her to Mexico, do you think, Rob? Is that just a literal escape? I mean, the United States, obviously she's from Maui, but she came to the mainland, but here she's really getting away by going to Mexico, correct?
Yeah, it is. It's like when I was working fugitives in Miami, Key West always tended to be a place where fugitives went, or people that want to be found. It's literally as far as you can go away from everything.
Ooh, just lost D'Amico. He'll be back. But in the meanwhile, Steve Fisher, he's been investigating this case. If you don't know him, he's on Twitter, SF Investigates. What's up, Rob? You're back.
I swear, Apple, you touch the mouse and everything crazy happens. So
Yeah.
I talk with my hands, typical Italian from New Jersey, and I'm waving my hands so they're not like taking up the camera, and I hit my mouse and it threw me off the page. So, but we were talking about Mexico being one of those places. It's like we found in Key West. It's somewhere people go, they get this idea that I'm going to go down to Mexico. It's another country, and it's, the rules aren't such down there, and I can get lost so much. And like I said last time, I kind of I'm like, oh my gosh, is she in Mexico? Then we could really have a kidnapping, because that happens all the time down there. I dealt with kidnappings in FBI, and Mexico just sends shivers through me that, and then if she really is kidnapped down there, no one's going to look for her, because they all went through this falsehood of her being missing type of thing. So,
by the way, this is true from KPIC. She's an adult. She has the freedom in this country to leave if she wants. her actions are completely legal. I guess the problem here is that this became a very public case, and there's going to be finger pointing. People are going to ask, why wasn't LAPD more transparent? People are going to say, why was the family putting out information if they didn't necessarily have correct information? And just from my experience in media, I can tell you for sure that is exactly what's going to be happening next. Brooklyn, and by the way, here is Dr. Detective. Can you hear us, Detective?
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
he is here. So, Troy, there's a lot going on here. Let me just fill you in quickly.
Okay.
And then you can join the conversation. But the reason we just did a show on this, but we had an LAPD detective named Moses Castillo. He's retired, but he's been working with his family, not in an investigative capacity, just to help them go through this. And
Okay.
they are upset with the LAPD. The LAPD today came out and said that she intentionally missed her flight to New York City. But now we are finding out from KNBC that she crossed into Mexico back on November 12th. That's like 2 weeks ago. And her father unalived himself 12 days later. What's your reaction to hearing that she apparently has been in Mexico this whole time?
Again, so first and foremost, I'm glad she's okay. Again, very alarming because of the fact that the father, what happened with his situation. And has a lot of questions to answer, obviously. We want to know why, what's going on. Is there some other kind of mental health factors or just her plans? I mean, and how she feels about this situation now.
Yeah, I mean, this is Rob and I are just scratching our heads. So I want to give some credit. He takes a lot of heat. Steve Fisher, by the way, he was supposed to be on the show today, and I'm going to get him on tomorrow, I'm hoping. Although he's going to be investigating, I think, out of state in the coming days. However, Steve Fisher is an investigator out of the greater LA area, and he's actually investigated Hannah's disappearance. And he was saying things like it was voluntary for a while, and it was getting the family really angry. But 6 hours ago, he was tweeting that LA Magazine, and this is why the media sometimes is tough to follow, but LA Magazine reported that she was caught on surveillance in Venice Beach last night. Turns out that was not her. Steve Fisher says that she took a 6:35 a.m. bus from Union Station, Los Angeles to San Ysidro, California. That's on the Mexico border. And that was on November 12th. By the way, one of the first mass shootings I can ever remember in the United States was at the McDonald's in San Ysidro. It was like in the mid 80s. I only remember that because I was on a teen bus tour across the country, and it was scary as hell when that happened. But Troy Looney, again, before I get back to Rob, she goes to Mexico. Do you think she was purposely, with these text messages about being scared and all these other things and a spiritual awakening, was she purposely trying to mislead her family? Because it seems like her family has thought she's been here the entire time.
Yeah, so what it sounds like is, I mean, obviously there's a lot of questions to be asked. There's some other evaluations, I'm sure, to be engaged as far as her condition. And only she can answer those questions right now. I'm sure the family's happy that she's okay. But there's a lot of mixed emotions I can imagine, just like we all have with the situation with her father. I mean, she hasn't responded, or maybe she has responded. So, as I said before, everything's always in play until it's not, right? So data and tracking and the tracing, the investigation in its entirety. So it's always in play.
And I knew this was going to happen. It's going to continue. The pitchforks are out. Yes, she was giving misinformation, and her family was giving misinformation. Grifters, all of them. We don't know the full extent of the story. Report the GoFundMe, because people were giving a lot of money. Steve Fisher got a text message, and he's obviously a good investigator. He got a text message from Hannah Kobayashi to a friend, and I'm going to read you guys the exchange. Hannah says, I might go to this is from yesterday, apparently at 4:00. So this is still so confusing. I might go to a homeless shelter, she texts. The friend says you should go back to Maui. She says, I literally can't, love. The person says, you shouldn't be spending money to continue traveling. You have a home and you need to go back to it. Yes, you can. Where's your ID? She says, I have it and my passport. The friend says, go buy a plane ticket to Maui. She says, it's a really long story, hun. Rob, that's an understatement of the current week or weeks since she's been missing. What do you make of that text exchange with a friend?
I mean, again, we talked last episode about her circle of trust, and obviously it's not with the family. And this person, again, I'd have to verify, but I think your source is probably pretty good. So when you look at it, we talked about like the father was estranged and some other things. So I think that makes more sense that something happened back in Maui. Don't know if it's with the family, if it's with the friend, if it's with the boyfriend. Something triggered this these events, and she planned this out. Like if and now she's saying she can't go back, and it's a long story. She's not going to get into it. So it sounds like she has more cognitive. We talked about, maybe she was having a mental episode, but that sounds like a pretty clear communication to her friend. She just doesn't want to talk about, or doesn't have the time to talk about it to there, but she's functioning. She has, if they're saying that she doesn't have her phone that she left Maui with, that she was in LA, she now obviously has a phone because she's texting. Don't know if it's the same one that they didn't see, which also would give me, again, once you start using electronics, I can go into, like we talked about last time, a commercial IDs in the phone, and we can start looking at a few things, but knowing you have to have a couple clear points, unless you're, federal law enforcement, to come up on some records. But commercial ID is a way to figure out where she's at. But again, if it's voluntary, the law enforcement's gone. And if the family wants to hire a private investigator to try to find her, just because he finds her doesn't mean she's going to answer his questions or the family's questions. She wants to be gone for some reason. And I think that they're going to have to respect that and say, okay, look, we love you. Please let us know you're okay. And when you're ready to come back.
Thank you, Rob. This is an amazing comment. Lemon Curd, Dr. Detective, why didn't the father know she was in Mexico? There was footage. So again, there is reportedly, according to NBC LA, footage of her crossing the border into Mexico November 12th and 13th. Her father was so heartbroken that his daughter was missing, according to reports, that he unalives himself 12 days after she's in Mexico. Dr. Detective, this is a very, for lack of a better term, just very interesting and unusual situation. Should LAPD or Border Patrol, whoever would be in charge of this, who knew that she crossed into Mexico, shouldn't they have let the father know this? I mean, he was looking around the LA area.
Right. So yes, again, it's contingent upon, what kind of information was shared with the father or family. What was she willing to share? How soon they recovered this footage and were able to I guess, collect the surveillance, essentially, right? So again, we still have to be careful, not knowing the full scope of everything of what she's been dealing with, and if there's a mental health factor, or if she just can't readily talk, if she's still with another individuals, or in the company of individuals, we're not sure how much access she's been given to speak. So again, yeah, it would be best case would be for her father to have known that, to go to her, to meet with her, and or make things right or good for her and the family. But I'm sure even with the anger or emotions involved, the fact that she's okay is one point of relief, right? But now it's getting to the making sure she's safe, if she's willing to talk, and getting to the questions of what happened, why was this truly a plan, and she can only explain that. I mean, only she can really articulate what's going on or what the reasons are for this event's happening.
Yeah, by the way, just to be clear, for those who are joining, the headline today, before all these other headlines, was that Hannah Kobayashi, according to LAPD, intentionally missed her flight from LAX to New York. But now NBC LA, this is not Steve Fisher, because some people, doubt the veracity of his claims. And Steve was supposed to be a guest on the show, and he probably still will be. But this is not Steve Fisher. This is now NBC LA confirming what Steve Fisher had said from law enforcement officials, and KNBC LA is saying she went into Mexico back on November 12th. And that leaves a whole new slew of questions that need to be answered. But Steve Fisher writes this, Rob D'Amico. It's a little long, but I'm just going to fly through it. He says, I'm going to address a few recurring questions. This is a tweet from 51 minutes ago. It was on November 12th that Hannah Kobayashi purchased a ticket for the 6:35 a.m. bus from LA Union Station to San Ysidro and boarded the bus. She was traveling alone, showed no visible signs of distress. She provided ID when purchasing the ticket, but stated that she did not have a phone when asked for her contact number. The information did not come through a third party. All I can tell you is it came through Greyhound Corporate. It was time for the truth to come out. Too many people were volunteering their time and donating money under false pretenses. To those who are upset or angry with me for releasing this information, I'll say this. A public call was made for help in locating Hannah, and I answered that call. I'm sorry if you don't like the answer, but the truth needs to be shared. Rob D'Amico, your response.
Wow, it's kind of the fact that he got this information about her status on Greyhound, traveling alone, and law enforcement didn't have it, and him feeling compelled to release it because we talked about the GoFundMe page and all these people, putting time and effort into it, and when he in fact knew she'd gone to Mexico and it seemed voluntary, and she was sane. Why, like, Greyhound? I would start now looking, well, when did LAPD get this? Why wasn't it released to a point? Why did a citizen have to go in and release this to force people from stop giving money and time and effort for something that was not in fact the case? So it now, like I said, since our last conversation or last show, things have gotten spiraled kind of crazy on all the release of this stuff, and now trying to put together that timeline, who knew what when, is going to be important.
This is just so bizarre to me, Dr. Detective. So again, she's now reported by KNBC. This is not just Steve Fisher, although credit to Steve Fisher, who was supposed to be on our show today, and hopefully he'll come on tomorrow. He's the one who said that she had left on her own and was reporting the crossover into Mexico. But now that's being corroborated by KNBC LA, who is speaking to sources at LAPD. And now more and more people are coming out and saying this, that she did, in fact, cross over to Mexico. People are asking about the press release. So the reason we came back on the air was we heard that the LAPD, that the police commissioner, the new one, he was going to issue a statement to KABC saying all this. He has not come out publicly yet. Dr. Detective, no one really knows the full extent of what is happening here, but at the very least, is this a PR nightmare for the LAPD? Because now you had people all over Los Angeles, all over the world, looking for this woman, watching Skid Row cameras, watching other publicly accessible surveillance video cameras in Los Angeles. And now we're learning that 2 weeks ago, more than 2 weeks ago, whatever it is, maybe 3 weeks ago, she apparently vanished into Mexico. And in that time, her own father takes his life. Is this a huge PR nightmare at the very least for the LAPD?
So in terms of PR nightmare, as investigators, we have to err on the side of caution, right? So in other shows, we talked about vetting the information, verifying the information, gathering the information, the time it takes to acquisition, collect, subpoena, request information. So we're doing everything we can, or collectively as a community and as an agency, or I guess as in law enforcement network, we're doing everything we can to make sure, is this, she's been spotted here or it's been reported. We have to verify that, right? And to determine, what all has taken place. It's really about the totality of her safety and what's taken place. It's really unfortunate with her father and what's taken place there with him unaliving himself. Very, very unfortunate. I always think of transparency when you're dealing with families, but we can only give the family what we know and what we have to vet and be able to prove. We have to verify this information is credible if we have some, and then we have to, again, protect the integrity of the case based upon what we determine took place, right? We have to verify that. And still, it's a thin line between, transparency and verification and protecting the integrity of what we have to contend with.
Yeah. So many questions. Some people say she was married. That I don't think that's been confirmed. And so there may have been a green card issue. I mean, they're all it's in the chat, one of these comments. Rob D'Amico, I think this is more your world than Dr. Detective, but now you've got a person who reportedly crossed over into Mexico. You got Border Patrol, obviously, down there. But number one, someone asked, how do they know it's her? So how do they know it's her for sure?
Well, I think part of it is, I'm sure Greyhound, the bus terminal, has each, ticket center with cameras. She presented the ID, and that was documented. So, I mean, any of those times that you do that, you have to go through the video. Was it her? In fact, as they did it, they confirmed. Okay. And depending on the camera system, some of them, like you use casino grade cameras, and they're looking at the ID, you can actually see it on the camera. But I'm sure they had to then call the clerk that did that and said, talk to her about the person's, her attitude, and did she seem under duress? What was the conversation like? Most likely the video doesn't have sound, because a lot of times that goes into privacy issues, but you can videotape anything. So they reviewed all that. And it's one of those things that they confirmed that. And then when they crossed over the border, had anyone got off the bus? And I haven't been across that border in a long time, so I don't know if they do a private where you get off, or they come on and look at your documents or whatever. But I'm sure all that had to be gone through. If she got on the bus, did she get off the bus? If the bus crossed the border, was there any other insight to ID checks before they crossed over?
This person's yelling at me, Shannon K. No, not today. I think you're talking about the intentionally missed flight. That was they probably did announce that, I think, at this police commission meeting. For whatever reason, it was all over the headlines today, Shannon K. But now there's more news coming from ABC 7. So now we have KNBC reporting that she went into Mexico, and now KABC. And here's to Shannon's point. The chief did say it last week. However, all the papers are reporting it today. That was the headline that they went with today, Shannon K. But on top of that, Eyewitness News, which is the ABC O&O station in Los Angeles, said that they have now learned there is a video showing Hannah crossing the border into Mexico. And it says it's not immediately clear what happened after she arrived in Mexico. And it doesn't have the date here, but KNBC has November 12th into the 13th. So obviously both now KABC and KNBC reporting she goes into Mexico. Dr. Detective, this part about it's not immediately clear what happened after she arrived in Mexico. What do investigators need to do about that, if anything? Do they need to find out where she went, why she went there, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so everything is relevant in terms of her method of travel. Again, was she traveling alone, accompanied by someone or individuals? What kind of payment systems had she potentially used, or not at all? Maybe cash or different currency. So again, talking with her, I like to err on the side of caution when we're talking about a victim. If that person is or is not a victim, that has to be yet determined, right, by the circumstances. And we won't know the full scope again until we can talk with her. We can verify her whereabouts, and as you said, her intentions or ill intentions, whatever that might be. Of course, she's an adult. It's not like we're dealing with a child or minor, whereas we take further precautions or additional precautions. But the fact that she wanted to, go missing or just to have a break, whatever that case is, again, we'll talk with her, show a lot of compassion, and it's okay to be angry, but she's okay. That's the main factor. We can be angry with her later, and hug her and so forth, but we have to verify that is the fact. So when we have one piece of evidence or information or report that comes in, we still have to determine all the questions pertinent. What happened, when it happened, how, why, and who may be involved, or just even her working independently on her own.
From Violet here, she may be embarrassed, never thought this would become a national, perhaps intentional story. Rob D'Amico, if you had to guess right now, do you think she realizes the scope of this story, particularly out west in Los Angeles and also in Hawaii? People in Hawaii are glued to this. Hawaii News Now is covering this extensively. Do you think she has an idea of how big a deal this has become?
Well, one, I don't think she thought it would ever get to this. Like when she put this in her head. I mean, I talked to kidnapping victims, people are kidnapped by pirates and terrorists, and cases we worked on for years, meeting every week about trying to get them back or trying to rescue them. And they were dumbfounded that anybody remembered them. And I'm like, you had an entire community within the special ops branch that met every week talking about you, and they were just floored. So I don't think.
Hey, Rob, hold on. Rob, hold
Yeah.
on 1 second. Hey, COE, can we get KABC up, please? I'm seeing a tweet from them that the chief is going to speak momentarily. And I hope you're hearing this, COE. COE, I'm bringing you on to make sure COE, are you hearing me? Yes, you are. Can we please bring up KABC?
Copy.
All right. So we're going to get KABC up. ABC Eyewitness News now tweeting, LAPD is expected to address the latest development in Hana Kobayashi case in a press conference around, 5:30 p.m. And it is now 4:45 in LA. So it's gonna be a long time, but we're gonna sit here. I got a lot of things. Rob, I know you might have to jump. Dr. Detective, you might have to jump, but who knows when this is gonna happen. But again, if you are just joining, we are finding out that Hana Kobayashi took off across the southern border. Rob, one of the interesting things about this is that there was a lot of talk that she had this quote unquote spiritual awakening. And I don't think this came from her necessarily. And STS Nation, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was talk that maybe she was heading up toward the redwoods, the giant redwoods in Northern California. Do you think that could have been an intentional ruse on her part to throw people off, thinking she's going up north and she's going south to Mexico?
I don't know where that came from. I'd have to look at what is the stream of information that provided that. If she texts that to someone, or somehow, then yeah. But I don't know if I don't know if she planned this out that much. I don't know if she thought so many people would be looking for, like we said before, or she thought maybe going up into the redwood forest was the way to get away from everything, and then for whatever reason, she decided to go to Mexico. People change their mind all the time. So just understanding what was the stream of information, where did that come from? Or was it someone threw it out there and, for whatever reason? Or was it something she said in the past and one of her friends go, I remember her talking about the redwoods. So maybe she went there and it came through that way. So understanding the context where it came from would really help trying to figure that out.
And of course, STS Nation, they're always on top of it. They're saying it was a text that she sent that the redwoods were calling her. So it sounds like it's coming from her, which is being corroborated here by Mama Bear from Canada. She texted it to someone. So, I mean, Dr. Detective, to you, this sounds, and again, it just sounds because we do not know the full story, like she was intentionally maybe trying to throw people off by saying, hey, I'm going to go to the redwoods. Now I'm in Mexico, unless she's having a mental health issue, which we do not, we're not privy to. There's so many factors at play here, Dr. Detective. How do you even begin to sort this out?
Again, so the mention of spiritual awakening, I mean, that can be perceived in many different ways, but, really it's going to be determined by her perception, her mental health factors and or demeanor in terms of what she can answer. The why question is really what we're all thinking, and the how, we know what happened, or we're learning more about what's taking place. It'll be contingent upon the conversation with her and where she is mentally now. Once she's made aware of the scope of everything, and how big this, how much support and love has been shared and effort within the investigation and or just exploration of data and whereabouts and people and individuals and so forth, she'll see later, hopefully, that she's highly favored and she's highly loved in terms of the amount of attention given to the case. So really only she can answer those questions right now.
Yeah. COE, before you get going, can you ask Steve Cohen to see if you can track Steve Fisher down, who just tweeted, and I'm going to read that. Steve, by the way, has taken a lot of heat from a lot of people saying that he was giving out misinformation, but he had mentioned this a couple of days ago, and it sounds like what he was investigating turned out to be what might be the truth. COE, what's happening?
I actually have a question for our best guest and wanted to know what the legality is in terms of the logistics of a case like this, where technically she has done nothing wrong. At this point, when do they call it off? When are they like, hey, let's not follow her anymore. Let's not share any more photos or videos or private information about this person who is an adult who may just want to be left alone.
Great
Obviously,
question, COE. Your reporting is your whatever it is coming out.
I'm a civilian.
Yes, sorry. Rob D'Amico, what about that? I mean, legally speaking here.
I think when they really can, reasonable doubt that she's doing alone and she's not being coerced to do these things, that they have to then end it unless someone comes back with further possible, information that may say otherwise. But I think at this point they have to really go to the fact that, like, look, we've looked at the preponderance of the evidence. It appears to us that she is voluntarily just getting off the map and doesn't want to be contacted. We have to respect that. There's no laws being broken at this point. And then the family, if they come across information, they could hire a private detective, and then he comes up with something later that shows, wait a second, we think she was coerced to do this, that she was being blackmailed or whatever it is. That's the only way they'd reopen it. So I think they have to go at this point and say, okay, from everything we've gathered, and it's not going to be 100% because they haven't talked to her, but they probably tried, and if they can't, they can't. They got to take what they can. But it's funny because when we do overseas and we think someone's kidnapped, we have to go through all the legal procedures to actually track their phones. So we got to get the family members that have an ability, and then as soon as we find out that it's not what we think, we go off those phones. That's criminal at that point after that.
Yeah. What about, by the way, COE, can we bring up KBC? Because they're saying it could happen it's likely to happen at 5:30 their time, which is another 40 minutes, but they're saying it could happen before. So if we can get, hello, COE,
Hey, if you look in the studio, that's KABC right there.
but can we bring up the stream full screen?
Yeah, but they're airing news for
Okay,
45
so
more minutes.
okay, if you see it, just keep an eye because it might happen
I
earlier.
Rob
told
is panicked.
Joey, I'm on for the duration, but I may have to go get a bourbon at one point.
Yeah.
It is.
You're allowed. You're allowed.
It's almost 8 o'clock, and I haven't had my bourbon. So
You can go get your bourbon, man. Is that
You,
by the
you
way,
have my permission.
I'm not prying into your personal life, but is that a nightly ritual?
not every night.
Mm.
I always get a little worried if I do something every night, but having a nice bourbon, just helps.
I need to start that tradition. There is another tweet here from Steve Fisher, who again has accurately investigated this, and I think he was doing it on his own. He just tweeted out, and then I'll get. And by the way, we're keeping an eye on KABC, but for Dr. Detective and Rob D'Amico, he writes, tweets, X's. I hope everyone remembers that Hana Kobayashi is no longer a missing person. She is not wanted, and no one should be seeking her out wherever she may be, unless her status changes. She should not have to live in fear of being approached or pursued. If anyone were to approach her, I hope it would be mental health professionals or doctors who can open a line of communication in an appropriate and supportive way. If she is spotted in Mexico or elsewhere, please keep in mind that she is free to make her own choices. She is likely in a fragile mental state, and it's important that we do not add to her stress or anxiety. If there's more to the story or questions that need answers, law enforcement will handle that. For now, it's crucial to respect that she is no longer missing. And I just retweeted that. Dr. Detective, your response to that tweet.
Again, so considering this case that's been looked at and all the circumstances surrounding the evidence, the fact that she appeared to be missing, the miscommunication or direct communication of the flight that was not taken, or now that we're learning intentionally avoided, or her having missed her flight intentionally. Again, we went from a mode of fear and trauma and concern to now a mode of comfort and compassion. Again, it's about surrounding her with, as was mentioned, the right mental health professionals or medical professionals that can assess and talk with her, even privately, about what happened or what took place. We may never get the full statement or scope of what she was feeling or why. We may never get the reason why, but the fact that she's okay shows a lot of concern and compassion surrounding this. And this should be for every missing person. This is why these cases are so difficult, because it takes a lot of compassion. We're not always going to get it right, but if we give our effort 100%, 200%, we've done everything we can. Again, we can all feel or rest assured when we find someone that's okay and that's unharmed, that we can feel good about that. So we're not going to lessen our investigative efforts because of a few examples or cases that were misunderstood or misconstrued, right? So we just have to talk with her, again, go into care mode and determine how can we best help her at this point, and learn from this. So we're not going to diminish any efforts going forward with missing persons cases or potential cases, because this is what makes it so difficult. But it takes this collective community compassion across the world to consider everything. As I say, everything's always in play, as Rob knows as well, and Joel.
Yeah, and now we've got KNBC reporting this, her moving into Mexico, crossing the border. You got KABC saying it. KABC says that at the bottom of the hour, or close to it, there will be a press conference with the LAPD, the new commissioner. And now, and they should be ashamed of themselves because they're late on this, but the LA Times, which is the paper of record for Los Angeles, now says police believe Hana Kobayashi is in Mexico. No evidence of foul play, according to sources. So now you've got the paper of record saying this. So again, for those just joining, the big headline is that we're just finding out that there's apparently video of Hana Kobayashi crossing into Mexico sometime between November 12th and November 13th. Her father unalived himself on November 24th. It was 12 days later. Rob D'Amico, is it possible that the LAPD just got their hands on this video in the last hours or days and maybe did not have it to show the father that his daughter was okay? Is that a possibility, or is there no way it would have gone 2+ weeks without it being on their radar?
I think it's absolutely possible. You just have no idea of when things came in. Again, if no one was pointing towards Mexico, that inquiry might not have come in to a point they were looking somewhere else with all the information that they're getting. I don't think they would have purposely, if they had that information. I don't know if they purposely would have left the family out of that disguise. I mean, that conversation. So it's really tough to piece together. We have so many just a part here, a part there. You don't know. There's certain things you do share, but then again, if the police thought there was some other aspect of this that involved the family, they may not have thought that was prudent to a point. So it goes back and forth. We've had to do a couple of things with kidnappings overseas that you couldn't really involve the family for emotions and other things, especially if you had information that someone's being hurt. It changes their ability to look at things differently. So there's so many factors in there to be able to say, hey, this is why, is really tough at this point. And I did get my bourbon on when I ran away there. I think I started something because I'm starting to see a whole bunch of, someone needs some tequila, some, I think, some Scotch whiskey and some other things that people were talking about.
We are officially becoming like Joe Rogan here, drinking on the set. There you go. It is now, by the way, trending on Twitter, Hana Kobayashi, the fact that she is in Mexico, according to multiple news outlets, sheriff's press conference. I think it is the LAPD, if I'm correct, not the sheriff, but that would be in 30 minutes. I'm not sure, to be honest, because we talked about a lot, how I can talk for an additional 30 minutes. So I have a great idea. You got two amazing investigators here. Put in triple Qs, and we will ask Rob and Dr. Detective. Dr. Detective, you okay for a little while till this press conference?
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
All right. So if you have questions, please look at this. Ida Shaw. As promised, I'm here with STS, not KABC. Good move. Have I told you that traditional media is dead? It is dead. This is the future. If it's nothing, why would family contact law enforcement in the first place? There's a question, Dr. Detective. Is it possible the family thought one thing and she was thinking another?
Of course, yes. Of course, when in times of need, in times of help, or just uncertainty, you call 911. You call for assistance. You call the experts. You call the specialists, and that would be the first call you make to law enforcement, right? So again, it has to go initially on record, or you lean into the arms of the investigators or to the help to say, hey, we don't know where to go. Can you help us? And they know that we have the long arm of the law and the extend and reach capabilities and expertise to engage with the devices, engage with other agencies, engage with the methods of travel and communications, right? So we have the capability to have a lot further reach and a lot faster reach when we're talking about travel, network, as far as what we have collectively as law enforcement. So yes, people and family are going to reach out to law enforcement to say, we don't know what's going on. We're not quite sure. what should we do, right? So that's our job to come in and say, okay, let's start with her plans. Let's start with, where she was, what was she, or what did she say she was going to do, right, initially. So that's family, friends, relatives, loved ones, significant others, and so forth, right? So we're just
More breaking news right
determining.
now. An SUV
Well,
driver
I'm
losing
sorry, I
control
just
in
brought that
parking
up because
lot,
there's a
crashing.
picture of. I'm sorry, Troy, to do
They
that.
said
to
it's
you.
coming up. It's not happening now.
Okay, so COE is on top of it, but I just saw her picture up there on the screen, so I brought it up.
Right.
You never know when one of my kids is throwing a tantrum or doing
No
something,
problem.
again, if you're joining us, it is now 5:00 in Los Angeles, 8:00 on the East Coast. I have no idea what time it is in New Zealand or Australia, but it's the next day. I know that. The breaking news right now is that Hana Kobayashi has been spotted going into Mexico, across the southern border. And there's been a search for her since November 8th. Today is December 2nd. In that time span, her own father, Ryan Kobayashi, took his own life. And so the question is, when did the LAPD discover that she had gone into Mexico? You have to think it was after her father took his own life, because if he knew that, maybe he would not have done it. And by the way, again, shout out to Steve Fisher, who's taken a lot of heat, who's a private investigator, who's reporting a lot of this a couple of days ago, and people were saying you're crazy. Well, it sounds like he's not that crazy after all. And I'm seeing Hawaiian news agencies now reporting this as well. Again, Hana Kobayashi, the missing woman from Maui, 30 years old, is reported to be in Mexico, spotted on surveillance video crossing that southern border. Rob D'Amico, are they going to have an investigation about the investigation now to find out what was going on, who knew what, when, why did this happen, why was it so convoluted?
I think investigation's kind of a formal way to call it. I think the chief's going to want, hey, give me the timelines. Let me know exactly when we found out certain things, when we released certain things. Um, I I don't think they did anything criminal. I don't think it's a matter of that, but he's definitely going to want to be able to present that if they start getting questioned. Um, and say, hey, this is the exact timeline of when we found out what. This is when we put things out. And it may be like, hey, they found out this video was in existence at this time, and they had to vet it to make sure that that in fact was correct and it wasn't just, a rumor or whatever. So it took a couple days to do that, and then maybe they didn't want to put that out for whatever reason, but I think he's going to have that timeline and the explanation. I don't know how far public that will come out. But I don't think it's a formal investigation that they did something criminally, that they did something wrong. They're just going to want to know, for PR purposes.
Now there are going to be a million questions. Dr. Detective from Factory Reset. Dr. Detective, could she have run off with a person married to someone else, thus the ruse? I mean, there could be 1,000,001 explanations, correct?
Absolutely. At one point in time, there was a mention of paying for a hotel room at a particular location, so that very well could be the case. Again, everything's on the table until we know different, and until we talk with her, and she may never share that. So unless we have some other kind of method to verify or determine, or other video surveillance that shows her with another individual or not, right? So again, that's very well a possibility, because there was a mention of that. So the good thing we have to remember is the good thing about this collective interest is, she's okay. If we do this for every victim, is it a waste of resources? Not really a waste of resources. It's more so just us, providing humanity to do what we have to do. And the more eyes we can put to a case, the more elements and things that we can do to provide information, because we like the information to flow one direction to law enforcement, right? And then we have to check out those sources, check out those reports, check out the video, locations, and so forth. So that's a part of our job, what we have to do. And it's easier the more eyes you have looking at a particular situation. Again, this is why this is the gift and curse of social media, but the blessing also, because it factors in when we find someone or when we get that one report that turns out to be credible, and we can say, okay, we see her clearly. Now we have her in our possession. She's being cared for or evaluated, whatever the case is. And hopefully she makes a statement later. Maybe she'll come on the show and talk about, what she's been dealing with. It may take some time for that as well. So again, everything factors in.
Candy Temple here. This is a question that hopefully we'll get during this press conference that we're waiting on with the new LAPD chief. How long has the LAPD known that she crossed the border? We don't know the answer. I mean, I'm assuming, and you know what they say about that, but I'm assuming it's fairly recently, because this news is just coming out. And of course, her father had unalived himself. There is a tweet here saying that Hannah Kobayashi remains on the California missing persons list. Rob D'Amico, is that a big deal or not? Is that just like a clerical thing that haven't had time to
That's just, yeah, it's just administrative. I'm sure if it came out, someone would be like, hey, get that down or whatever. Or like I said, it goes up there and then at least it got up there and then they got to take it down. So it's one of those things. It's administrative, like last minute, like, oh, they forgot it. And they need to take it down. Like you said, this is all just coming out now. The fact that they said a couple of days ago that she intentionally didn't get on that second flight didn't mean she wasn't missing at that point. I think it was only today they came out and during our first show, we heard from the detective that they were going to say that it was voluntary and not involuntary. So I think that only came out today. So give them a day to get that off the website.
Everyone kind of jumping. This is now trending again on X, formerly known as Twitter. Rob D'Amico, again, this is more your world. If she is in a different country, are there eyes on her? What happens now? I mean, it's obviously hard in Mexico, but is anyone watching her or even paying attention to her at this point?
No, they shouldn't be. Like if they think she went down there on her own, like now the FBI does have a large legal attaché office in Mexico City, and they have outposts and a couple other consulates and stuff. And we do work with foreign law enforcement all the time. But if you don't think she's down there if you think she's down there on her own, there's no reason to watch her. No reason to take resources. She's an adult. She made a decision, unless again we think there's evidence of some other type crime, and I don't think anything's pointing to that. She wants to be left alone. That happens.
Yeah. By the way, Ned Smith raises an interesting question, and it's this: has she been found? So they're saying that she was spotted crossing into Mexico across the southern border. But Rob, that doesn't necessarily mean that they know where she is, right?
No, it doesn't. And that's what's starting to come out now is what evidence or what information do they have to make these statements that it's voluntary? Was it the fact that she bought the ticket? She wasn't under duress. We talked to the agent that dealt with her buying the ticket. She was alone. She got on the bus alone. No one followed her. She didn't look. Is that what they're saying now has led them to saying, well, she did this on her own? And if that's the case, they haven't located her in Mexico. That has nothing to do with it. Or if they knew where the bus dropped them off and they coordinated with Mexican law enforcement to try to talk to her, maybe that happened. Don't know. I think that's probably, a bit much, but they could look at doing that and saying, hey, what town she get in? Here's a picture. If you can find her, ask her, make sure she's okay. Don't know if it's going to go that far.
From Kenzie, the Newfie's mama. I'm not sure what the hell that means, but I guess that's a dog. Cute dog, by the way. Dr. Detective, why would the family want to push this narrative of her being in danger, contrary to evidence? Is this about money, a giant hoax? I mean, it's very possible that the family didn't know any of this until recently, if they even know it now. We just don't know, right?
That's correct. Yes. So again, as I mentioned before, they went from fear and concern to not understanding, just confusion. Maybe this is outside the scope of her behavior, right? It's a totally different behavior with her saying, "I've had an awakening spiritually, and I'm going to the redwoods or what have you." So again, not having the capability to physically stop her from doing what she wants to do, or not knowing if she's been abducted, or not knowing if someone's taken her. We get a lot of information and a lot of stories that we cover as far as people being harmed, people being threatened, people being taken, and we don't always have this kind of outcome. So this is again, someone mentioned in the comments, positive comments being mentioned, positive thoughts, that does factor into effort and everything. So again, her being okay, we can cross the T's, dot the I's as far as the questions, the concerns later. But yeah, family just will probably have a loss of what to do. So of course they're going to call us for that reason.
And by the way, the new LAPD commissioner, Jim McDonnell, I believe is his name, he is supposed to speak in about 19 minutes, and the COE is monitoring that so we can bring it to you live. This was sort of quasi addressed. Please subscribe to Public Schedule by 2020. Oh, thank you. It's a good idea, COE. Rob, how do they verify that it was her? A lot of people look similar. Like people thought they saw her in Venice just yesterday. Is there any kind of facial software recognition, like fancy stuff? And will they run it through there, Rob?
I would. I mean, again, facial recognition works on different points of the face. So depending on, how good the video quality is, or again, someone took the ID and they checked the ID, they used a credit card, whatever those things are all in that they factor into it. But they could have used facial recognition. But again, there's a whole probability in that. So it's not like a fingerprint, but all the things that add up to them assuring it correct ID. The person looked at it, verified, yeah, that was her ID. The pictures they put through facial recognition. I mean, again, it's not this hard case that you have to have a bunch of evidence to go before a jury. They're looking at resources that they're using and time, so to speak. And if they truly, preponderance of the evidence says she went down there voluntarily, they can say that and, turn the next one and say, okay, unless something comes up, we're going to close the case.
People ask, why are you interested in true crime? You can't, this stuff is very intriguing, things you can't make up. Cooler by the lake here. Dr. Detective, this raises an even bigger question, but the question is, was the alleged photography gig ever verified, or was it a ruse from the beginning? So for those who do not know, Hana Kobayashi allegedly was going to New York City for some big photography gig that she got, and she had already booked a $2,000 hotel room in New York City, on and on and on. But now, Dr. Detective, even though she's reportedly going to be announced as a non-missing person, as someone who left on her own, are investigators going to look at these questions? Like, did she really have a meeting or a gig with a photography gig in New York City? Did she really have a hotel room booked? All these things. Are they going to ask these questions? Is there going to be, again, an investigation into some of this investigation?
Yes, absolutely. So again, part of the verification of data and information starts with, what do we readily know initially? What were the plans? What were the text messages, emails, and conversations? What was told to friends or family? She may have shared her intentions with another friend, that swore secrecy to her to say, go do what you have to do. And then now that may have changed, right? So yes, we're going to verify the company that was listed initially, the payment of the monies to the hotel room and or booking, and or maybe even a contract that she could have had. Maybe she decided to cancel that. So yeah, those are all sources that have to be verified. That's all information that has to be verified and should be verified. Of course, once she's in protective situation or in a situation to be cared for, that will be part of the process.
Just looking at the comments, someone asking how old she was. There were reports she's 31, but the latest number is back to 30. Here's a question from Ida Shaw that I haven't seen yet. For the best guess, wouldn't you want a phone call, FaceTime, Zoom, or any video evidence of her to declare this is voluntary or that she is safe? What about that, Dr. Detective?
So yes, definitely, and that very well could be happening as we speak, right? With family, friends, or just talking with her. Maybe they're going out to meet with her currently, or maybe that's been told to law enforcement. And based upon her wishes, she could have them share that with family. I'm okay, but I want to be left alone. So yeah, that's all contingent upon what she's willing to share and how, what kind of state of mind she's in currently right now, what kind of emotional state she's in as well, learning the magnitude of what's been completed or what's been conducted as a result.
Yeah. Abby Crossing, big friend of the show, helps us out behind the scenes. She's not a criminal. I fear that we are treating her like a fugitive. It's a very fine line, Rob D'Amico, but is this true? Are we treating her more like a fugitive now than a free woman who's just in Mexico?
I think some people are starting to trend that way. And I think part of it's because they're almost hurt that like what they thought was happening wasn't the truth. I think I saw like someone put in there like she should have to pay for the resources. She didn't cause, like, she's not the one that caused this with the family getting people involved and looking for, not, and it's not their fault either. It's just what you do. She probably didn't think this happens. It's kind of like they talk about charging people for rescue operations when they get out and sea and they ignore the storm signs or they're climbing mountains and stuff. But I think that it gets dangerous when you start looking at doing, charging people that you're looking for resources and stuff, unless it is a planned ahead scam or something like that. You really can't. She didn't know her family was going to cause this much publicity and get these many people involved. You can't blame it on her. So I think people are starting to trend towards hating on her when we should look at it like, my God, what happened? Like that she had to do this. What was the trauma that caused this? And have some empathy, because obviously it's not natural and something happened.
From Mar Plam to Dr. Detective here, when a person goes missing, are the agencies releasing the picture across the country or to the border patrols? I'm asking because we have this in the UK. When she was reported to be missing, did the border patrol at the southern border and northern border of Canada, did they have photos of her, or was she being flagged?
Again, so that's contingent upon every agency and where they start with the investigation. Obviously, I'm sure this started with LAX and from Maui and potentially through to New York. So of course we have a large database that's law enforcement sensitive. So this is really not going to, it would be information, or the type of information that's not going to be shared with media initially, right? We're going to share it within the range of our law enforcement agencies, and those are all certified, licensed, and sensitive databases, right? So we have to protect that, and we can always talk about what we readily know. And again, being that the media has been a huge assistance to the process, it still requires the protection of integrity, protection of information, the verifying of information. Can't say that enough. And again, we never want to start blaming the victims, right? It's okay to be upset. concern, because as you know, when I was I like had a very, very simple, basic thing that happened when I was younger. I stayed away too long from home. I was just down the street when my brother worked at the gas station. And at this time, there were like the Atlanta child murders going on TV. My mother was furious. When I got home, she dealt with me physically, right? And she was happy and elated, but also scared. So all those emotions come to the table, right? And but she was happy that I was okay. So I mean, that's perfectly understandable. That's what compassion is. That's what we should do as a community. We should be this way for everybody, right? And if we share that and just take that into consideration, it's going to be okay, right? We can scream and yell and kick, but she's all right. And unfortunately for the dad, we wish this would have been delivered sooner, much sooner. But this is where mental health factors in, whether it's diagnosed or not, right? We're all just people, and we all share that compassion for those reasons. We have to be more compassionate, right? Have to. So again, never blame the victim.
Yeah. By the way, I hope your mom forgave you, Dr. Detective. Took a while.
It was a mutual understanding.
Here's another tweet. Rob D'Amico. This is from someone I don't know, but this is trending on Twitter now. It's time they started releasing the video with these updates. If they have imagery of Hannah crossing into Mexico, we'd like to see it. We all have a right to do so, given the country is geared up to find her, and it's been 3 weeks now with law enforcement seemingly doing not much. Your response to a guy named Steve?
I'm not sure where Steve says that he has a right to see whatever. Just like it's one of those things. It's like I go back and forth. Like it's like you want to reach out to the public when something happens and missing, and if my kid was missing, I'd want the public involved. But you don't have a right to it, and you don't have a right to all the law enforcement information either. The law enforcement has to look at what should we release to allow the public maybe to help to, but they don't have a right. The public doesn't have a right to that stuff. You can go through the Freedom of Information Act and request stuff, and it can be redacted because at that point they're going to look at what do we hide for privacy and everything else. But you don't have a right to it, and that's like the entitlement of I have a right to see that. You don't. I get it. You're involved in the case in that you have an interest and you put a lot of time looking at it, and maybe you're even on the street looking for it and giving time and stuff like that. But when you do that, you got to understand you should be doing it because you have empathy for something that's happened and you're trying to find someone, but it doesn't make you have a right to that information. And the same thing with investigations. There is more transparency coming out, but you don't have a right to everything that's there. And if they found out that she had a family trauma and she did this, you definitely don't have a right to then get information more to find out I should know what the family trauma was. Absolutely not. Like, so what's the next step of your right I have a right to see things or know things?
Look at this suggestion, Rob. We've got the STS calendar in the works, and it says Rob D'Amico for the calendar with an FBI badge only an FBI badge. So, by the way, Rob is jacked if you haven't seen him in real life like I have. Here we go. Here's another tweet. Boom. Hannah Kobayashi has escaped to Mexico. She fooled her family. There was no paid job in New York. Her father unalived himself in vain. My heart goes out to her family for this Machiavellian behavior by Hannah Kobayashi. Dr. Detective, I've been in media long enough to know this is going to be the next step. She is going to be vilified in the media. First, LAPD is going to take heat, but then they're going to come down on her, and the old Oprahs of the world, whoever's got the big talk shows now, would have her on. Or the family on. But should it be that way? Should we be mad at her because we all feel like we were duped?
Again, there is this thing called right to privacy. But there's also, a right to justice and a right to, people caring for you, right? So again, we don't want to blame the victim. What we can maybe learn from this even is, to take a approach of, you know, maybe we can suggest to her evaluation, or if that be the case in the future, if she chooses to talk about this, just showing her, everything that's been done, the stories that have been discussed, the perspectives or speculation that's been suggested. Um, this is a positive outcome, in partially, unfortunately, not with the father, but for her, it's a positive outcome that she's okay, right? Some other viewers have said, I always talk about positivity, right? And it does factor in. It makes a difference. So let's learn from this. Let's learn that maybe we can consider some kind of discussion. Maybe it opens the discussion for a shared kind of collective communication, or kiosks, or whatever the case is, or someone that wants to go off the grid, right? And without concern, right? So a lot of different options there, or considerations. No shortage of creative potential solutions that can be introduced as a result. So again, right now she's okay. Um, the questions will be asked, maybe might be shared, or solutions and answers might be given, but that's not a guarantee. That's not a guarantee.
For sure. COE. I just brought that up for a second. We've got KABC where there's supposed to be a press conference any moment. It is 8:26. However, COE, I noticed it looks like KABC is
Watching true
3 minutes
crime.
behind.
I would avoid watching it.
Look, I'm muting it, but it says 5:25, and I have 26 on my clock, but I guess it's close enough here. So, this is the local KABC feed. COE, can I keep this up, or is this like a copyright issue? This is fair use, in my opinion, because of breaking news. Can we keep it up, COE? Is that a yes?
Sure, I find it distracting, but if you want it up, yeah, you can watch the news.
I don't find it distracting. Thanks. I love watching the news. So this is KBC, and there's a kid with a like a nebulizer, an inhaler, which my own kids have had to take every once in a while. Look at this. Just off topic for a moment. Isn't this how people join cults? They disconnect from everyone. STS is the closest thing I have to a cult. Please join our cult. It's a fun cult. Sometimes we talk about disturbing crimes, but all in all, we have a pretty good time here. It's funny watching news reporters report the news when they bob their head and talk like this. Robin Ray, you should be casting the COE in the next big film. She would love it. She's a trained actress, and she would love to. No, she's not. But she would love to be in a Hollywood movie. She is from the Hollywood Hills, after all. COE, I just noticed you took the news off. Look at this, Rachel D. STS. I'm here of my own free will. Thank you. I was trying to think. I don't know this case, but Vivian says it reminds me of Carly Russell. Oh yeah, this is a recent one, right? In Birmingham, Alabama. In that case, she faked a kidnapping and her legal consequences when they found her. Would there be any recourse for Hannah, like Carly's case? What about that, Dr. Detective? What if it was intentionally, if she was duping law enforcement intentionally? Is that a problem or criminal?
So again, that's contingent upon what can be proven, what's stated in her discussion, and it's unfortunate because we know there are true victims out there. If that would be the case, there are victims that are waiting to be rescued, or waiting to be found, or hoping to be found, right? So again, that's the flip side and the unfortunate part of everything we have to contend with. That will be based upon the agency, the amount of resources and discussion, and what's a consideration by the prosecutor's office. But that's all based upon the locality or the collective agencies that have been involved. But ultimately, I've had victims that have reported crimes. They came back later and said, no, I lied about it. We just kind of, make sure they're okay. and document that, and move forward with the next potential case.
Look at Esme here. We are fans of true crime, not her family. She doesn't owe us any explanations. I agree with that. However, you've got a public that's going to be hungry for answers, and that is just the way of the world. I don't think there's any way getting around that. They want to know if you have agreed to be on the calendar, Dr. Detective Troy Looney.
Oh boy,
that's
yeah,
a non-answer.
Is
think
the
someone
calendar really a thing? Like,
I don't know. They want it.
I don't know about just the whole show.
COE. I'm getting an alert. COE from KCB.
I'm Giovanna Latta. You're watching Eyewitness News at 5, live on ABC 7, Hulu, and wherever you stream. We're following breaking news at 5:30. The LAPD is expected to give an update on the disappearance of Hana Kobayashi.
The 30-year-old went missing on the 8th of November. She was on her way from Maui to New York with a connecting flight at LAX. She missed that connection. The LAPD saying that it appears she did it on purpose. Tonight, ABC 7 learning there is video showing her crossing the border into Mexico. This is a case that has perplexed a lot of people, and what you're seeing now is the new chief of the LAPD, just sworn in last week, Jim McDonnell, to update us on this disappearance of Hana Kobayashi.
Here we go.
30 seconds, Jim?
Sure, whatever you want.
30 seconds.
Okay, he's just been given a 30-second cue by somebody, so we're going to wait for him for a couple of seconds, but it's really a lot of people concerned about
A lot of people concerned about this. Just today, we heard from Hana Kobayashi's family. They announced that they were taking down the Facebook page that they had posted asking for help, looking for her. That was an announcement today. They said they had been receiving a lot of negative comments, so they removed that Facebook. Also, you and I were talking about the fact that her father took his own life. Was it a week or two ago?
last week.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here today with us. I'm joined here today by Assistant Chief Chow, Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton, and Lieutenant Oldfield from our Missing Persons Unit. I wanted to provide you an update on the ongoing search for 30-year-old Hana Kobayashi, who was reported missing last month. As the family is aware, late yesterday, after traveling to the U.S.-Mexico border, we reviewed video surveillance from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, which clearly shows Kobayashi crossing the United States border on foot into Mexico. She was alone with her luggage and appeared unharmed. At this time, Kobayashi's case has been classified as a voluntary missing person. I know over the last few days, there have been several investigation corroborated by video evidence clearly shows Hana at LAX appearing unharmed after arriving from Maui on November 8th of this year. For unknown reasons, she decided not to board her pre-scheduled flight to New York that same day. From November 8th to 11th, video footage and still imagery showed Hana at various locations around Los Angeles. This information was subsequently verified by LAPD detectives. While she did check her bag through to New York, she requested her bag be sent to her at LAX, where we have surveillance footage of her retrieving it from the baggage carousel on November 11th. LAPD Missing Persons Unit has conducted extensive witness interviews, reviewed video surveillance, and collaborated with local and federal law enforcement agencies on this case. To date, the investigation has not uncovered any evidence that Kobayashi is being trafficked or is the victim of foul play. She is also not a suspect in any criminal activity. Additionally, the investigators noted that before departing Maui, Kobayashi expressed the desire to step away from modern connectivity. Our priority is ensuring Ms. Kobayashi's safety and well-being, and we urge Ms. Kobayashi to contact her family, law enforcement, or personnel at the U.S. Embassy to let us know that she is safe. She has a right to her privacy, and we respect her choices, but we also understand that the concern her loved ones feel for her. A simple message could reassure those who care about her. While the LAPD investigation will not continue into Mexico, if anyone has credible information about Hana's whereabouts, please contact local law enforcement. If Kobayashi returns to the United States, law enforcement will be notified. The missing person case will remain active in the missing and unidentified persons system until her safety is confirmed by law enforcement. Anyone with additional information regarding this case may contact the Los Angeles Police Department at 877-LAPD 24/7 or 877-527-32 47. Anonymous tips can also be submitted to Los Angeles Regional Crime Stoppers at www.lacrimestoppers.org. Let me open it up now if you have any questions. If I cannot answer them, if the detail is such, I will refer it to one of my partners here.
But it's safe to say that no crime has been committed yet. No evidence of that.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Safe to say that no crime has been committed. There is no evidence of it.
At this point, we have not been able to determine any crime has been committed.
Chief, given that there's no reason then for any law enforcement agency to detain or arrest her at all at this point.
That's correct.
Is there any indication from her family that there were arguments, disagreements, problems prior to her leaving Hawaii and during a period of a month where she's been sort of seen, not seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's no indication that there would be anything to cause this to happen in this fashion, for her to go off. But like any family situation, you know, who knows what the dynamics are.
How did you learn that she had a desire to disconnect from modern technology? How did you learn that piece of information?
Yeah, let me address that to Lieutenant Oldfield, if you would, Doug.
I'll take your first and last name, please.
Douglas Oldfield, Douglas, last name Oldfield, Oldfield. I'm the officer in charge of the Special Enforcement Section out of Detective Support and Vice Division, which handles the missing person unit.
Good question.
Right. So for the question of whether she wanted to disconnect, by looking at her past social media, we then saw indications that there were some desires or posts that would be consistent in somebody who would have the desire to disconnect from their phone. I think it's not something that I have available right now. It's just that was part of the investigation. Are we 100% right on that? We can't say, right? That we just know that she did not have her phone after she left LAX, right? Around 1800 to 1900. We know she doesn't have her phone on her. For what reason? We can't say for sure.
How did she get from LA to the U.S.-Mexico border? Do you have any idea?
Yes. So she traveled through the MTA. She then made it to Union Station. At Union Station, she used her passport and cash to purchase a ticket to get to the border, and she then crossed the border.
Have you seen the video of the border? How would you describe or characterize how she appeared to be?
She appeared fine. She was with nobody else. I have nothing additional, but I have observed the video, yes.
I spoke with Hannah's sister earlier today. She says the family disagrees with law enforcement's assessment. What do you say to them?
Well, fantastic. Thank you.
Alan Hamilton, I'm the chief of detectives for the LAPD. We understand that there are concerns on behalf of family and friends. We've been very transparent with the family to this point. We have had daily communication and contact with family members, and we've given all the information that we can provide in terms of what our investigation has entailed, what the efforts have been on behalf of the LAPD and other partner law enforcement agencies. We've put a lot of resources into this investigation. So just to be clear to the public, the LAPD has taken this report seriously from the moment that we received it, and we have expended a lot of resources to include a trip this past weekend to the U.S.-Mexico border to collaborate with our partners there. So this is an investigation where we've done a lot of things face-to-face with our partners, and we've gone to extraordinary measures in terms of our technological investigations in this case. We've really left no stone unturned, and it's led us to this conclusion and the information that the chief is providing today.
Alan, I don't know whether you or Lieutenant wants to remember, but is there anything in the information you gained from previous messages, things like that, which mentioned a name of a person, a group, or something that might know its sister in disconnecting from society? Is this an individual desire, or she expressed some kind of a knowledge or an awareness of a certain type of pattern of social organization she might want to join somewhere in Mexico?
Generalized individual desire, we have no information that she's working with anyone else.
You guys have had a couple of these cases recently, unfortunately, where women have decided to just, make a change or disappear on their own. Just any words you would say to someone thinking about this, or just encourage them, I guess? You guys take all these cases so seriously. It requires a lot of manpower.
A tremendous amount of manpower, yeah. Yeah, a lot of personnel involved in any major investigation like this, and in order to try and protect those that are in many cases very vulnerable. My my ask would be to anybody considering doing this, think about the people that you're leaving behind, your loved ones who are going to be worried sick about you, the number of people, including law enforcement and other partners who are going to be looking for you, which then potentially takes them away from other work that is also critically important. So there's a lot other than somebody just deciding that they want to leave and disconnect. Consider those that are behind you and those that will be impacted by your actions.
Obviously, your heart goes out to the family. They're worried about.
Absolutely.
And of course, we know that the father is gone as well. So
Right.
this is a family that's faced a lot of tragedy.
Right.
What would you say to them?
I'm very sorry to the family for all that they've been through throughout this ordeal. We're very sorry for their loss. And I don't know that words can express, the feelings that they're going through during this very difficult time. But there's a lot of people very much in support of what they're going through.
In essence, Chief, this is back on the family at this point. They and the daughter basically have got to settle this between them.
Yeah, I mean, we've basically done everything we can do at this point. She's left the nation, left the country, and in another nation now. So, as I mentioned in the earlier comments, that if she comes back into the U.S., law enforcement will be notified of that, and try and do whatever we can if there's a need to at that time.
Mexican authorities, though, have a certain degree of latitude way beyond what forces here in the United States might have. Have you advised them of the situation, filled them in as much as you can? Might they decide to take action on their own, whatever that might decide to be?
Yeah, I haven't had any interaction. I don't know if, nothing, no.
And what day did she cross over and roughly what time?
Oh, I can help.
Yeah, please.
November 12th at 12:13 p.m. She walked through the tunnel that leads to Mexico.
And in San Diego there? Yeah.
Yeah, she walked through the San Ysidro port of entry, and she walked through the tunnel that leads to Mexico, and that was at 12:13 on the 12th, 12:13 p.m.
What about the text messages that she sent to her family before it went silent? It sounded as though she was in distress. Can you speak to her state of mind and what indication that gave to you?
Yeah, we want me to address it.
Yeah, good.
So we can't speak to her state of mind. We are aware there have been some communications prior. We are aware of that communication, and we cannot necessarily interpret. I think some of the communication can be interpreted a number of different ways. So at this time, we're not able to interpret those communications without having Hannah present to explain, how she felt when she sent them and what the specific meanings were for those messages.
Let's do one more question. Hannah was seen with an unknown person at Metro Station.
I can address that.
Yeah. Arena.
Yeah.
Any idea of who that person was?
So the question was about the individual that she was identified traveling with on the Metro. We have identified that individual. That individual was cooperative in the investigation. That individual cooperated by allowing himself to be interviewed with his attorney present and family members. He gave a full disclosure of the entire sequence of events. We utilized independent investigative techniques to verify his story, and it fully checked out.
What was the relationship? What was the connection?
They met at LAX. All right. Thank you.
All right. The LAPD now giving information about the disappearance of Hannah Kobayashi. It was voluntary from their investigation. She is, as far as they can tell, alive and well and living in Mexico. She crossed over, as you just heard, on
That was KABC, live coverage of a press conference about Hannah Kobayashi. We're going to break it down with Rob D'Amico, retired FBI, and Dr. Detective Troy Looney, who are both coming to our second channel with their own shows very soon. So stay tuned to that. But kind of straight and to the point, this was the new chief, Rob D'Amico, Chief Jim McDonnell, the other lieutenant in charge of the missing persons unit, came up later and said that she crossed over into Mexico November 12th at 12:13 p.m. Again, her father unalived himself 12 days later, but the LAPD made it clear at this press conference that they only went this past weekend to the border where they found that video of her crossing. Rob, what jumped out at you, if anything, about this press conference? And should the LAPD have gone to the Mexico border much sooner?
One, I thought it was a good press conference. And if you're going to be the chief of LAPD, you have to be able to give good press conferences. He gave the information he had, stated the facts, why they made certain determinations, put out the timeline, allowed his subordinates to answer a couple more detailed questions. And I think it all stemmed like, hey, this is what we had. This is where we're at. We've used lots of resources to get here, and this is a determination. But please, if you're listening, contact your family, contact law enforcement or wherever. Let us know you're okay. He also did say that there's obviously a border watch for her. So if she does cross back, she's going to be detained for secondary, and then they can get in front of her and talk to her. But he did say she hasn't committed a crime. She's entitled to this. He wished she would have done it differently. He talked about the resources being used, and if that person had just explained to the family what they're doing, this wouldn't have happened. But hindsight's 2020. But I thought it was a good press conference. They had the majority of questions that they were asked, they were able to answer. I'm sure they were all, drilling those detectives that were working on this about everything, so that if it came up, a question came up, they could answer it. But I thought for the most part, it was a pretty good press conference.
Yeah. By the way, it's not clear. We think the father didn't know because the LAPD commissioner made it very clear that they only traveled to the Mexico border yesterday. That would be Sunday, December 1st. She vanished into Mexico on November 12th, and her father unalived himself on November 24th. So again, the LAPD just went to the Mexico border yesterday, December 1st. She disappeared into Mexico November 12th. 12 days later, her father unalives himself. Same question to you, Dr. Detective. Is it a dropping of the proverbial ball that the LAPD, with this super high profile case, does not go to the Mexico border? She goes missing on November 8th, or the reported missing a few days after that, but they don't go to the Mexico border until last night. Is that too late?
No, that's a part of the investigative process. As we also heard them mention, they were coordinating with their partners, right? So there's task force, there's other agencies, there's the local agencies, there's the federal agencies potentially involved. They were all coordinating the efforts of what they were going to do, but they took it upon their, discussions to say, we're going to send our representatives as well, or agents or detectives there. So no, this is as I said, it's a collaborative effort. And as they mentioned, we've been very transparent with the family. We've had interviews and discussions. All that takes time, right? And again, so they're not going to say this is what we did at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, right? They're initiating and delegating what has to be done, but also working in conjunction. So it is a collective effort. And as we're all or have been a part of task force, or currently still are a part of a task force, that's how that works, right? We can make a phone call a lot faster than we can fly. So they've done a very good job of presentation, and they've shared what they could, as they mentioned. So they've reiterated what we talked about. It's about the integrity and verification, and then again, questions that will have to be answered later.
Yeah. From Jules B. Tully, this is a good question. Before I get to it, just a couple of more nuggets from the press conference. The commissioner said that she was alone with her luggage when she crossed over the Mexico border, that she is voluntarily missing. That's probably the most key thing in this entire news conference, that she is voluntarily missing. Up until that phrase, we thought that that there could be something sinister, but she went of her own free will. He said that the images we saw of her between November 8th and November 11th were still images, and that she, in fact, did request her baggage be sent back from New York City. Of course, she never connected on that flight. He said, the chief, that there was no evidence of sex trafficking or foul play, and she is not a suspect in any crime right now. But Rob D'Amico, good question. If it's closed, why do they need tips? He did say, please, notify your family. He said that she'll be flagged if she crosses back over the border. So why those safeguards? Is that just to make sure she's okay?
Yeah, I think he actually said that the case is going to remain open, but not work, so to speak, so that if something comes up, and again, if information comes in that there's something nefarious that wasn't seen before, the case is open, they can start looking at it again. It's not closed. Or if they get tips, or if they probably have to leave it open to do the border tips. So they're going to leave it open. They're just not going to work on it until they get further information. So I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah. Real quickly before I forget, tomorrow, Ashley Benefield, the so-called Black Swan, she is being sentenced in the morning. We're going to cover that, and then probably do some sort of wrap-up show on this, is my guess, tomorrow in the evening at 5:00. Few more things here, Dr. Detective. The chief, the commissioner, said that Hannah expressed interest in disconnecting, that she specifically wanted to disconnect, that they figured this out through social media and some of the things that she was saying. At Union Station in LA, she used passport and cash, I guess, to get her trip down to the Mexico border, where she crossed over. What about this fact that she was specifically or purposely trying to disconnect?
Again, so obviously it sounds like it became overwhelming for her at some point in time, and maybe she intentionally used cash so that her credit cards wouldn't be tracked or documented or digitally identified at that location. So again, if she says, it could be considered selfish, but if she says, I just want to be off the grid for a moment or left alone, again, a phone call goes a long way to say, hey, I'm okay. I just need a break, right? Communication goes a long way, or sharing that. But at that time, she felt she was just taking a trip. That happens a lot with people that take cruises, right? You're unplugged for a moment or a while, and what happens, but not justifying this, just trying to look at her mindset, or potentially look at the perspective of what she may have been dealing with, right? She says, I want to unplug. And let's face it, social media is always connected. It's integrated. So again, we won't know that answer until she provides that to family and friends.
Couple more things as we wind this down here. Again, she wanted to disconnect. This is according to law enforcement. Law enforcement said, look, we expended a lot of energy and resources, including the trip they just took yesterday to the southern border. And went on to say, law enforcement did, that they still do not know if she is okay, meaning Hannah. We cannot speak to her state of mind. As far as the mystery man at the Pico metro station, they said that they questioned him. He was very cooperative. He was interviewed with an attorney, that he had met her at LAX, and his story completely checked out. But Rob D'Amico, two more quick things I want to address. They admitted, we still do not know if she's okay, and we cannot speak to her state of mind. How big of a problem is that? I mean, Mexico is not the safest country in the world, at least not on the border. It's not.
It's not, but they have to, again, gauge with what resources are putting towards something, and the probability is high enough that they're confident to say, look, everything that we've seen indicates that she did this on her own, that she wasn't being forced to do this. They have to take, like I said, they put a lot into this, and they have other priorities now. If something comes in, they can reopen it. But for now, it's going to be such. And I think it would be, I think it'd be bad if they kept putting resources into to try to find someone who doesn't want to be found with no indication that a crime's happened.
Mm. Someone's wondering if law enforcement has her phone. No indication that they seized it or would have.
Yeah, you can figure out that she ditched her phone by its movement and everything. There's a bunch of, like, when you start throwing some resources at it, you can figure out that the phone probably stopped at LAX or wherever she threw it or got rid of it, so to speak.
By the way, it's not Juarez there. It is Tijuana, down by San Diego. But Dr. Detective, I was just going to ask about this. I mean, that Mexican border is a very dangerous spot. I mean, tons of gang activity, and there's a lot of sex trafficking reported to take place down there. Is she in danger now that she's out of the United States?
I was thinking that as we saw some of the posts and comments here, hopefully that's not the case, right? Maybe she has someone she's meeting with there, or a group that she's going to engage with, or just plans to, get to a safe location and maybe take a break and then make contact when she's ready. So yeah, again, there's a lot of contingencies, a lot of opportunity, unfortunately, with it being an unsafe location or point of travel, right? So again, hopefully she gets to a safe location and reaches back out to family at some point in time, sooner than later, hopefully.
By the way, a big shout out to Ida Shaw JD for the very nice super sticker. Much appreciated. Much longer day than I had anticipated here. Ned Smith, so who wants an STS calendar? The women are clamoring for Dr. Detective and Rob D'Amico, and maybe they'll get their wish. We just don't know yet. Final thing here, and then a very quick final thoughts. They were asked about the family. Was there any indication from the family that something was wrong? And they said absolutely nothing. Rob D'Amico, he served the nation for 39 years in the military and the FBI, chased pirates around Somalia. He never chased a woman into Mexico that I know of. But Rob D'Amico, your final thoughts here on this crazy and wild and convoluted story that has taken us south of the border.
Yeah, I know everyone kind of wants answers because they've got time and energy invested into this, but you may never get them. It may be a personal thing. There was a trauma or something that triggered this, and it's unfortunate what happened to her father, and everyone's saying that they should give back the money from the GoFundMe, but they didn't know it was this voluntary thing, and they probably spent a lot of money in hotels and being in LA. And I think if after expenses, if something's left over, they want to, maybe donate it to a missing person type charity or something like that. But they reacted to what they knew at the time. I don't think they were involved in whatever and trying to do something. So have empathy for them. Their daughter was missing. That was probably, since the time she was missing, a roller coaster. I've dealt with people that have missing people on kidnappings and stuff, and the emotional roller coaster is crazy. Have empathy with them, and then allow them to go private to figure it all out. Not that everyone will have empathy. People are going to demand certain things like the knowledge of everything, and they give back all the money and everything else. But until you're in their shoes, just try to put yourself in their shoes to really understand maybe what they're going through.
Yeah, really well said. And this is going to continue to happen. The Strawberry Girl has a theory. She had words with her father before she left. She told him that she was going to tell everyone about some horrible secret. She left in a vulnerable mental state to that conversation. We have no idea if that's true, but people are going to now obviously surmise about what happened. Dr. Detective Troy Looney is still an active detective in Akron, Ohio. How much longer are you active for, Doctor?
That depends. So 15 months max. That can change, but that's the max point. So we'll see what happens right along the way in our journey.
Yeah, there you go. So Detective, you get the last word here. I mean, this is a really bizarre case. That's why I got the media attention that it has gotten. The story will peter out over the next few days. Real quick before you go, huge shout out to the COE who covered for me today with the Sarah Boone sentencing, life in prison, with one of the craziest statements I've ever heard from a convicted killer. And then Space Coast, Steve Cohen, and of course, our amazing mods. Dr. Detective, your final thoughts.
Again, so let's see what we can learn from this, or potentially think about what we can learn from this. Let's again, we err on the side of caution as law enforcement. Try not to be too hard on the agencies involved, because we do this for everyone, right? We'll do this for every case. If we treat every case the same, regardless of resources, we have to stand in the gap for the victims, stand in the gap for the witnesses, the family. Again, prayers go out for the father, and we have to find a way to heal together, right? This is all trauma, essentially, with whatever she's dealing with, and the reason why she wanted to leave. So I wanted to say thank you for sharing and having me on. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Joel, and COE, and everyone. Thanks for the great comments and questions. You know, we all have those that come to mind, or things that we think about. So this is how we learn together, we grow together, and then we spread that compassion, right? So I'm glad that she's okay. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
We can deal with everything else later.
100%. Really well said by both Rob and Dr. Detective. Does Dr. Detective have a channel? Not quite yet, but it's coming to our second channel, and he's going to have his own channel, and we're going to talk about it and let you guys know. Same thing with Rob D'Amico, who just polished off his bourbon. Two really great guys. Had the good fortune of meeting Dr. Detective at CrimeCon, and then Rob is sort of a neighbor up the road, and we've had lunch a couple times. Two amazing guys, and we only have the best of the best guests. So you'll see them on our second channel. The good thing is it's Friday afternoon, and I can go. No, wait, it's Monday.
I was like, wait a second.
I think Joey's the bourbon.
It feels like Friday. I cannot believe it's Monday. Somehow I have to get to the end of this week. Love you, America. Hannah Kobayashi, for those who just missed this 2-hour show, she is in Mexico. Whether she's safe or not is anyone's guess, but authorities do know that she went of her own free will. She is in Mexico, and the story will be continued in some form or fashion. I can guarantee you that. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you tomorrow at the Ashley Benefield sentencing, 9:30 a.m. See you then.